Special episode, Game of Thrones Season 8, Episode 2, Leaks. Welcome back to New World Slackers. We're continuing our look at the Game of Thrones Season 8 leak that dropped a few weeks back. Last time, we went through the first episode of this supposed leak, and if you haven't seen it yet, you should go watch that video first, as this alleged episode we're talking about here feeds off of stuff that happens in the previous episode. Also, let me take a second to issue a spoiler warning. Not because I think this leak is real and that it's really telling us something that happens in future episodes of our favorite show, but because in discussing this leak, I might mention stuff from the books or the TV show, and you really need to be 100% caught up on both of those to really get what's going on in this episode, but especially the show. Be 100% caught up on the show before you start watching this video. Another warning, if you haven't seen my videos before, or you haven't been paying attention to the screen, then you should know this video is full of memes and GIFs. Why? Because, damn it, we all need to laugh sometimes. But if moving images set to audio is too much for you, as others have complained in the comments for previous videos, well, first of all, why are you watching videos in the first place, boo? Images set to audio is literally all videos. Second, click away now. You're not going to like my sense of humor or my style of storytelling. Okay, on to the leak. I gave y'all a bunch of basic information about this leak in general in the last video, so I'm not going to repeat it here. Just go watch the analysis of episode 1 of season 8 right here on this channel to get that breakdown. Then come back to this video and kick it with me. Let's start off by taking a look at the opening scene. We're back at Winterfell, where Tormund and Gendry, who arrived at the end of the last episode, are telling those gathered that the Night King has taken down the wall. They're talking to Jon, Tyrion, Davos, and Sansa. Tormund tells them that the Night King has the undead Viserion as a mount and that they're all fucked. Jon gets Maester Walken to send ravens to their bannermen. They'll be needed to shore up the defenses at Winterfell. This is not a stupid scene, really. I have no complaints and plot holes to expose here. Let's just move on. The following scene is still set in Winterfell, but this time we follow Jon as he visits the crypt to see the graves of his mother Lyanna and his uncle Ned. He's still struggling to deal with the things that Bran and Sam told him about his true parentage. Dany notices that Jon is acting weird, so she follows him to the crypts to ask him what's up. He tells her everything he believed about himself is a lie, and that his name isn't even Jon Snow. Dany is very confused by this, but Jon walks out of the crypt without explaining himself. Dany also leaves the crypt, but is noticed by Jorah, who asks her what's going on between her and Jon. She tells him that Jon has been acting strange, aloof, and that he's hiding something from her. Jorah tells Dany that she's been out of commission for the last 2 days, and she replies that she's not feeling well. He suggests that she see Maester Walken to help her feel better. So here's where I'm going to add some of my personal opinions into the mix, but I'm also going to ask you to do some thinking too. Do you think that Jon would give Dany the cold shoulder? Let's break it down a little bit more. We, the audience, have only seen Jon in love once with Ygritte. Yeah, sure, he gave her the cold shoulder during their time together, especially at the start of their relationship. But the major reason he didn't ever fully commit to her was because he'd sworn a vow to the Night's Watch. That, and he didn't want to get her pregnant as he knew what it was like to grow up as a bastard. So his Night's Watch vows meant that he couldn't marry or father a child with her. But he loved Ygritte. He gave her everything that he could. That much was made clear. In this situation, would Jon be hesitant to get involved with Dany? I don't know, man. And here's a bigger question. How would Jon react to finding out that he had sex with his own aunt? Someone in the comments for the last video said that Starks aren't cool with marrying brother to sister, but they have married first cousins quite frequently in the past to preserve the first men bloodlines. Which is totally true in the books. So where does aunt and nephew fall in this spectrum? I'm gonna guess, but this is just my guess, that it's not a huge deal. Remember, this is a medieval world. Marrying first cousins, and even aunts and uncles, was very typical in the time period, especially for nobles and royals, both in the real world and in Westeros. So maybe, just maybe, Jon wouldn't actually be grossed out by his relationship with Dany. So then why is he giving her the cold shoulder then? He doesn't have any vows that he's violating, and it's not like they're siblings, so in their world, this relationship wouldn't be weird. So then what's causing this rift? Is it because Jon knows that he and not Dany is the rightful heir to the Iron Throne? If so, why would that bother him? After all, he never wanted to be a king. He said it many times since he was crowned king in the North. So why would he be aloof towards Dany, as the leak implies? Why is he acting so brand new and like he's better than her? It just doesn't jive with the character they've been building up for the past 7 years. But then again, the writers have done stranger things, so who can say? For scene 3, we're back at the Red Keep in King's Landing as Cersei and Qyburn discuss her recent miscarriage. She doesn't really want to talk about it, and he leaves. She stares out the window as snow falls on the capital city. I'll pause here to note that Cersei hasn't had a miscarriage yet. In the leaks for season 7, there was a rumor that Cersei would miscarry in the season finale. Well, Sunday has come and gone, and Cersei, for all we know, is still pregnant. The rumor now is that this miscarriage will occur at the beginning of season 8. We know that Cersei can't have another baby, as the show made it clear that the prophecy that she received as a child from Maggie the Frog is still in effect. So, Cersei shouldn't be able to have more living children. If she did miscarry, that wasn't shown in the finale, and it wasn't in the leak for the first episode of season 8. So when the hell did she have this miscarriage? I mean, it's theoretically possible the season 8 leak is incomplete, and there are scenes including this miscarriage that weren't included in it. But this scene of her miscarriage that was supposed to happen in season 7 involves Cersei waking up in a bed of blood to indicate that she lost the baby. So if this was really the scene where the miscarriage is being discussed, why wasn't the miscarriage shown before it? TV shows typically tend to show these types of things. If a woman miscarries, oftentimes we see her experiencing something traumatic that leads to the bloody scene of the actual miscarriage. This show, full of blood and gore, would probably not shy away from showing us this, which only further supports the idea that this leak is fake. I'm guessing the leaker might have written this as an elaborate fan fiction based on the season 7 leak that had Cersei miscarrying in the finale. But I could be wrong. Again, the writers could decide that we just don't need to see the actual miscarriage, and a simple conversation between Cersei and Qyburn would get the message across just as well. In the 4th scene, we're back with Jaime and Bronn on the road. They arrive at Riverrun and find it under siege by Edmure Tully and his men. Edmure wants to capture and chain Jaime up, but Jaime tells him he's not here to fight over a castle. He tells Edmure about the Night King's army and asks him and his men to come north with them to help his nieces and nephew protect themselves. Edmure agrees because he still loves his family. Oh man. So last episode, Jaime and Bronn were on their way to Riverrun, only they were trying to go there to get the garrisoned Lannister soldiers. This scene has them come to Riverrun and meet up with Edmure Tully. What? How? Last time we saw Edmure was when Jaime used him to win back Riverrun and kill the Blackfish. According to the official Game of Thrones Wikipedia, Edmure was then taken prisoner of the Lannisters. Presumably he was kept in Casterly Rock or the Twins. Well, we know that Arya is in the Twins in season 7, and she doesn't set Edmure free at that time. And at least we never see if she does. And if they kept him in Casterly Rock, then Jaime would have moved him when he had the rock emptied out before Grey Worm and the Unsullied arrived to take the castle. So if that were the case, then Jaime would know exactly where Edmure Tully was currently being held, and he wouldn't have been surprised by Edmure somehow being free and besieging Riverrun. The other thing is that Edmure suddenly has an army. The Tully army. Where did they come from? How did he rally them? Maybe you guys have some ideas out there, and if you do, please leave a comment. I'm looking for some answers to this. Back to Winterfell for scene 5. The Stark bannermen are all here now, including Howland Reed and his daughter Mira. A man appearing to be Lord Cerwyn arrives and takes Arya aside, taking off his face and revealing himself to be Jaqen H'ghar, or at least a faceless man who looks like Jaqen. He tells her that someone has taken out a hit on Cersei Lannister and that Arya should be the one to complete this mission. He gives Arya a vial of poison and then leaves. Okay, this is actually kind of interesting. I was under the impression that we wouldn't be seeing the faceless men again, but if this leak turns out to be true, then I guess we do. I mean, it's not completely unbelievable. The guy who plays Jaqen H'ghar even said that his character allowed Arya to leave the House of Black and White. so she didn't really leave by threatening them. She was permitted to go. It was implied that in the script, Jaqen knows Arya serves a greater purpose, hence him allowing her to steal the faces and go. So yeah, sure, I can sort of get behind this turn of events. I could see the writers making this happen anyway. I'm personally not really into it though, because I always believed that Arya wasn't truly a faceless man, and she never really did worship the many-faced god. Do you remember that scene where Arya finally kills the waif? Do you remember how she ended up using Syrio Forel's water-dancing sword maneuvers to do it? I always thought that her using those techniques plus using Needle was implying that she'd reverted back to Arya Stark at this point and that her days as an official faceless man were over. But again, I could be dead-ass wrong. Also, and maybe this is a strange thing to mention, but did the faceless men kill Lord Cerwyn just to get this mission to Arya? I mean, think about it. They need to cut off a person's face to make their mask. So Arya tells Sansa this when Sansa finds her bag of faces in season 7. So did this faceless man kill Lord Cerwyn and cut off his face? Or is Cerwyn alive somewhere and somehow walking around without a damn face? And if this was all done simply to sneak into Winterfell and tell Arya to kill Cersei, then what the F, guys? Don't the faceless men have better ways of communicating than literally killing someone and replacing them for a very short period of time just to talk? Seems a bit much, don't you think? Scene 6 continues our adventures in Winterfell as Jon tracks down Howland Reed and begs him to tell the truth about the Tower of Joy. After much cajoling, Howland admits that Ned took Lyanna's baby from the tower. He's sorry that he wasn't able to keep Ned's secret, but Jon isn't sorry, and he thanks him for being honest. So from the books, many people truly believe that Howland Reed is the only person in Westeros still alive who knows that Lyanna Stark had a baby, or that Jon is in fact that baby. Many book readers think that Howland's testimony might be the only thing that convinces the great lords of Westeros to back Jon's claim to the Iron Throne. But who can say? George R. R. Martin is still working on the 6th book, and in the books, Jon is still stabbed and presumably dead. So it's hard to say what will happen. But in this supposed episode, the only point to Howland Reed's presence is to confirm Bran and Sam's story for Jon and Jon alone. As you'll see later in this video, for really reals, the only point to Howland being here is simply for Jon to ask this question. That could be how it goes down in the show, but it seems like a bit of a waste. That's just my opinion though. The 7th scene takes us back to the Great Hall of Winterfell. Here we see the following characters discuss their plan to defend the North. It's Tyrion, Jon, Sansa, Arya, Brienne, Pod, Davos, Tormund, Gendry, Varys, Jorah, Theon, the Hound, Grey Worm, and Sam. Apparently, the last hearth, home of the Umbers, has been taken by the dead, and young Ned Umber didn't make it out alive. Daenerys is still sick, so Tyrion speaks for her. He has a plan. He wants the Dothraki, the Unsullied, and the Free Folk to go to the Dreadfort, the former home of the Bolton family, to fight the Night King's army. Then, Dany's last 2 dragons will blow fire from the sky outside of Winterfell as the Northern Lords and the Knights of the Vale take the fight to the remaining dead guys on the battlefield in front of Winterfell. He hopes this will destroy the Night King, and with him, all the dead and White Walkers that he created. Jon decides that Brienne needs to escort Bran, Arya, and Sansa to the Eyrie with Robb and Arryn to make sure that they stay safe during the battle. Arya obviously doesn't like this plan, but Jon commands her. Jorah wants to fight with House Mormont, but Lyanna Mormont doesn't want him there as he's betrayed their house. Varys pooches on through to let everyone know that Cersei lied and that she's got Euron to bring her the Golden Company. He then tells the group that Euron has taken Storm's End. Theon and Gendry ask Jon's permission to take Storm's End back, as Theon knows Yara must be there, and Gendry wants Storm's End as he is the last Baratheon. Jon tells them that's not a good idea and they have more pressing concerns. Theon is disappointed but accepts Jon's order. Now if you're paying attention, you can see right through this to see the major, obvious, glaring issue with this scene. Theon isn't here, man! We know from the finale episode of Season 7, Jon already approved of Theon's plan to rescue Yara, and Theon already managed to convince the surviving Ironborn to follow him on this rescue mission. He's gone. So he's definitely not here asking Jon for permission in Season 8, Episode 2. Okay, now on to my subjective analysis. First of all, let's discuss Tyrion's plan. Why did they make a second plan? I thought that this leak's Episode 1 said that Jon made a plan to lure the Night King's army into the Vale. Okay, I just double-checked that, and yup, that's exactly what happened. Jon totally says in Episode 1, their plan is to draw the undead into the Vale. So why are we making a new plan now? Is it because Tormund and Gendry arrived to tell them the wall came down? Sure, hypothetically, maybe. But then, why was Jon's plan to lure them to the Vale if he didn't imagine that they'd cross the wall? This plan of Jon's is only applicable if the Night King managed to get his army past the wall. Well, Tormund and Gendry arriving simply confirmed all of the stuff that Jon needed for his plan to be set into motion. So then why did they need a new plan? Not that I'm thinking that Tyrion's plan is bad or that Jon's was better. I honestly don't think either plan is better or worse. I'm just saying that in a small season of 6 episodes only, that's 2 planning meetings in the Great Hall of Winterfell, and we really only need 1 plan. The last major thing that didn't sit right with me personally is that Gendry is so concerned about who owns Storm's End. Because why? He's never even been there, and in Season 7, he openly tells Jon and Davos that he wants to be part of the war. He doesn't say anything about wanting to be legitimized or inherit the Baratheon title and lands. He straight up says, I'm not sitting out this war, when he hears about the White Walkers and stuff. So why would he want to leave the battle we've literally seen him ask to be a part of, just to go take a castle that he technically doesn't have a claim to because he's a bastard? Plus, who would be following him into battle? Most of the Baratheon bannermen died either fighting at Blackwater, blown up by wildfire, and those who didn't die there, they were taken with Stannis to the north to take Winterfell from the Boltons. I imagine any Baratheon soldier who survived that battle would have been flayed alive by the Boltons. And there's one other group of Baratheon soldiers out there who aren't dead, and those are the soldiers who abandoned Stannis after he's burned his daughter Shireen. But why would those guys follow Gendry to fight Euron and the Golden Company just to take back a castle? And that's why this scene feels fake or forced. I mean, there are far more minor things that bother me, but again, this is just my opinion. Bottom line and objectively speaking, though, the big glaring issue is that Theon is here and asking Jon for permission to get Yara, and we definitely know he can't be here and that Jon already encouraged him to rescue Yara in Season 7. In Scene 8, Missandei visits Dany's bedroom, and Dany tells her that she is pregnant, that Maester Wolkan has confirmed it. Missandei is confused as Dany isn't happy about this news, and Dany tells her how Jon has changed with her, but she doesn't know why. This could potentially be another issue. Dany isn't supposed to be able to have kids, so how did this happen? And before one of you gets smart on me, yes, I know how babies are made. I'm just asking why she was able to get pregnant. I mean, maybe the writers were setting this up in Season 7 though, because in the finale of Season 7, we have a conversation between Dany and Jon where she repeats that she cannot have kids, and he asks her how she knows that. She told him about Mirri Maz Duur and how that witch cursed Dany to be barren. Jon asks Dany to consider the possibility the witch lied. So maybe that was the hint that they were going to make Dany pregnant in Season 8. You guys tell me what you think in the comments. You know I try to respond to every single one. Okay, onward to Scene 9. The Dothraki, the Unsullied, and the Free Folk prepare to leave Winterfell to go hang out at the Dreadfort. Jon asks Dany why she wasn't present at the meeting, and she tells him that she wasn't feeling well. Mira goes to say goodbye to Bran in the Godswood when Bran starts acting really funny. He tells her that the Night King is here and to warn the others. Jon is about to say goodbye to Sansa, who is presumably leaving for the Eyrie, when Mira arrives to tell them about the Night King's arrival, and simultaneously a huge storm appears over Winterfell. At this point, chaos erupts. I think that this scene is actually pretty plausible. If this leak turns out to be true, and Sansa is being sent to the Eyrie to hide out, then yes, Jon would probably say goodbye to her. And if the Reeds came to Winterfell when Jon called his bannermen, then sure, Mira could presumably show up too, seeing as her dad is one of those bannermen. And the plan that Tyrion came up with did involve the Dothraki, Unsullied, and Free Folk all leaving to go to the Dreadfort, and they'd probably have to prepare for that. I just have one question though. Why wasn't Howland Reed at any of the meetings of Jon's Bannermen in Season 6 or Season 7? If you guys have a clue about why he didn't come when the banners were called before, please leave me a comment. Up next, we have Scene 10, where the Northern Lords, the Knights of the Vale, the Free Folk, and the combined strength of Daenerys' army are now outside of Winterfell preparing for the battle against the undead. Jon orders Sansa, Arya, and Dany into the castle as they are too important to lose. He promises them that Winterfell will not fall. Varys, Tyrion, Sam, Gilly, the baby, Lyanna Mormont, and Missandei are also inside of Winterfell. Sansa notices at this point that Bran is not with them and she figures he must be in the Godswood. She asks Meera Reed to go get him. Meanwhile, on the battlefield, the Dothraki are almost all wiped out by the undead. A White Walker almost kills Jon, but his direwolf Ghost appears and saves him. Unfortunately, that is the end of Ghost. He dead. R.I.P. Ghost. Inside the castle, Dany is freaking out because she knows she could ride Drogon and help them in the fight, but Missandei tells her it's not safe seeing as she's pregnant. The news of Dany's pregnancy surprises Sansa, Varys, and Tyrion. In the battle, Drogon decides to fight without Dany, so he takes off and starts blazing fire, but he is killing both the undead and Dany's allies. Drogon manages to take out an undead giant in this attack. At this point, the Night King arrives on Viserion's back and proceeds to really mess things up for our heroes. Lord Glover and Howland Reed die. Tormund also dies because he's team-killed by Drogon by mistake. Poor old Tormund. It's implied later that this attack that Tormund led included most of the Free Folk, and most of those Free Folk are all dead now too, just like the Dothraki. Back in the castle, Meera is trying to get Bran to leave the Godwood, but Bran says he must remain so he can help in the fight. Outside, Jon and Dany's army is failing miserably, and their numbers are falling. Grey Worm faces off against 2 White Walkers. He manages to kill one of them, but the other one kills him. Bye-bye, Grey Worm. The last line of defense for Winterfell is left up to Brienne, Podrick, and Gendry and Jorah. Unfortunately, Podrick gets killed. Later, Brienne goes crazy after this. Meera is still out here trying to make Bran leave, but he's being stubborn, and he tells her she should get to safety, but that he will stay. Meera tells him she's not going to do that. She's going to stay with him until the end. At this point, Jaime Lannister, Bronn, Edmure Tully, and the Tully army show up to help. Bran manages to use his warging powers on Rhaegal, and the dragon goes after his brother Viserion. The 2 dragons fight in an epic duel in the sky. Rhaegal gets badly hurt, but manages to hurt the Night King with his dragon fire, and the Night King at this point tucks tail and flees. Ugh, oh boy. Here's where things begin to really fall off the rails. So, the Night King's army is here now, and whatever the plan was, whether it was Jon's plan about the Vale or Tyrion's plan, they're kind of out the window. Because there are so many little things going on here that are either confusing to me or they just feel wrong to me, I'm going to list them in point form style, okay? First of all, Lyanna Mormont and Arya Stark are sitting inside the castle during this fight. But I thought that Jon said in Season 7 that all the people in the North had to fight, including girls. Lyanna even had a big speech about it, and Brienne looked on with approval. So why are they hiding out in the castle? Let's think back to the Battle of the Bastards. Even Sansa, a person who isn't into fighting, like physically fighting, she didn't stay hidden anywhere when that battle went down. She was sitting on her horse watching the battle with Davos from a bit of a distance. Not that I think Sansa would want to fight in this battle, but I really doubt that Arya Stark and Lyanna Mormont would be sitting in the castle, just sitting on their thumbs. The other point is, Howland Reed dies. So basically, the only grown adult who could corroborate Bran Stark's claim that Jon is the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark is taken out of the picture before he has a chance to do any confirming for anyone but Jon himself. Okay, that's kind of stupid. So, to the point that I made earlier about how Howland was only in this whole season so that Jon could ask him that one question, yeah, that's still valid. Like, couldn't someone else have heard Howland's answer? Someone like Daenerys or Tyrion or Varys? It makes the whole character of Howland and his presence in this episode a little useless to the plot, other than it makes Jon feel better for a little bit. And that to me seems like a waste. The next thing is that Tormund dies because he's team killed by Drogon. Okay, what? Drogon is supposed to be intelligent. Tyrion in the show even says that dragons might be more intelligent than humans. That's right before he goes down to try to take the chains off of Viserion and Rhaegal after they're chained in the Great Pyramid of Meereen. And the show has gone out of its way to show you how smart and aware specifically Drogon is. Drogon doesn't hurt people that he knows unless his mom tells him to. Drogon rescued Tormund and the others in Season 7, Episode 6, and he didn't hurt any of Dany's friends while he and his brothers rained down fire on the undead army. What's more, it doesn't seem like Drogon killed any of the Dothraki when he attacked the loot train. In all that chaos, we were never shown the Dothraki being team killed by Drogon. So how the hell does Tormund get team killed by Drogon? It doesn't make any sense. And maybe this is just an opinion, but why would they kill off a fan favorite like Tormund in this manner? He is as beloved as people like Davos, the Hound, and Bronn. So I just can't imagine the writers doing this to him. The audience would riot in the streets. Fourth point, why would Mira come back and stay with Bran till the end? Wasn't his cold treatment of her enough to have her leave and not come back? And why would Howland bring his only living child into this fight? He already lost his son Jojen for the Starks. Why wouldn't he leave Mira at home to defend Greatwater Watch in case Winterfell was taken by the Night King? Mira is a competent fighter, and she is his only living child. She's better off staying at home and defending her home. Unlike Lyanna Mormont, who is the head of her household, Mira doesn't actually have to be here because her father is here. And after what Bran said to her and the way he treated her the last time we saw them, do you think that she'd really come back? Again, if you have insights, leave me a comment. Y'all, there are so many issues with the scenes, but those are the major ones. I'll admit, most of these points I made about this scene are my opinion, and that doesn't take away from the fact that, this leak could be true in the end. But I'm going to ask you, does this seem like good storytelling to you? And more importantly, why are these deaths not given any emotional impact? Especially since these characters, Ghost, Podrick, and Tormund, are so beloved. In the second last scene, scene 11, we open with Mira in the Godswood. White Walkers are coming for Bran, and Mira defends him. Unfortunately, she is no match for the squad of White Walkers, and they kill her. See ya, Mira. Viserion and Rhaegal keep fighting each other, and now both are seriously injured. But it's too late. Bran gets stabbed to death by the White Walkers that killed Mira. As Bran dies, Rhaegal falls to the ground and is swarmed by undead who stab the dragon to death. Somehow, the Tully forces were enough to do some serious damage, and the Night King's army is slowly dwindling in number. Apparently, and this is word for word from the alleged leaked script, the Hound is fighting like a boss right here. When Jon finally realizes the Night King's army is retreating, he calls all the living survivors to fall back to Winterfell. From here, the group decides that they need to split up. Team Sansa, which includes Brienne and Robin Arryn, go to the Vale. Arya, her uncle Edmure, the Hound, Jaime, and Bronn follow the rest of the Tully forces to go back to Riverrun. Jon, Davos, Tyrion, Varys, Missandei, Jorah, Theon, Sam, Gilly, and the baby all go to the south, although exactly where they're headed isn't told to us right now. Lyanna Mormont and her men go back to Bear Island. Damn, this might be the dumbest part of the episode. So let me get this straight. We've been on this journey with Bran for 7 years as he becomes the Three-Eyed Raven. But apparently that was all for nothing, because he's dead and that's it. Why would they kill him off before he actually helps in any significant way to fight the Night King? Here's another really stupid part of this scene. How in the hell did Jaime and Edmure Tully's army make such a huge dent in the Night King's army to the point that they retreat? Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but these guys don't have obsidian, they don't have Valyrian steel, they don't have fire, they're just using regular ass weapons. And we know that those three things, fire, dragon glass, and Valyrian steel, are the only things that can kill the undead and the White Walkers. So did Jaime bring an entire army's worth of those items like obsidian and Valyrian steel weapons to equip these soldiers with? But didn't we find out earlier in this episode that he was surprised by the Tully army at River Run? He clearly doesn't have thousands of obsidian daggers or Valyrian steel swords, so how are these Tully soldiers fighting the undead army? The rest of the points I would have to make about this scene are purely subjective, but from a neutral, objective standpoint, we still don't have a valid reason why the Tully army is so flipping badass. They were able to do what the combined might of the Northern Lords, the Knights of the Vale, the Dothraki, the Free Folk, and the Unsullied were unable to do combined all together. So count that out, people. That's somewhere in the range of 5 separate armies that were losing until Edmure Tully and the soldiers of the Riverlands rode in and saved the day with regular-ass weapons. Nothing about this makes a lick of sense. The final scene, the 12th scene, is Jon and Dany on Drogon's back, lighting up the dead bodies on the battlefield so the Night King can't turn them into undead wights. This includes the dead dragon Rhaegal. Since the last scene is not terribly stupid, I'll move on, but before I wrap this bad boy up, let's do a quick list of all the people who died in this episode. Number 1, possibly Lord Cerwyn, just so Jack in a car or someone who looks like him could use his face to get one message to Arya. Number 2, Ghost, which leaves Arya's direwolf Nymeria as the last living direwolf. Number 3, Howland Reed, who dies without proving that Jon is Rhaegar and Lyanna's son, except to Jon himself. Number 4, Lord Glover, but honestly, who really cares about him? Number 5, Tormund, because Drogon suddenly got stupid and team killed him, even though Drogon's never done anything like that before. Number 6, Grey Worm, because suddenly he can't fight 2 dudes at once, even though we've seen him fight more dudes than that and survive. Number 7, Podrick, because, well, just because. Or maybe it's to give Brienne some emotional stuff to go through. Number 8, Mira. Apparently she's so obsessed with Bran and losing her brother wasn't enough, so she dies here too. Number 9, Bran, because apparently he's useless and becoming the Three-Eyed Raven was not helpful in the fight against the Night King. It was only useful to tell Jon that he's Rhaegar and Lyanna's son and not prove it to anybody else except Sam. Rhaegal, number 10, because even though this was said many times in the show, the whole 3 heads of the dragon thing has been trashed. So that's it, you guys. The leak for episode 2 of the last season of Game of Thrones. I hope you enjoyed my analysis, and if you feel like seeing what else this leak has to say about season 8, then stick around because my analysis for the next episode will be out in a few days. Thank you so much for watching, and hey, if you're gonna comment, please try to keep it civil. We're all grown adults here just talking about a TV show that we like. There's no need for anyone to get nasty. Anyway, on that note, I'll let you go, but I hope I'll see you back here for the next video. Bye, guys!